This is GordoTEK, outdoor mushroom use. I previously published a detailed video describing the Johns Hopkins protocol for psilocybin with meditation for use in clinical settings. The same protocol can be used by individuals at home, and many have sent me feedback thanking me and reporting great success with the protocol. But this is certainly not the only recommended way to use psilocybin, and indeed many people actually prefer to use psychedelics outdoors. Being out in nature can be an exceptional and even spiritual setting that puts you into an ideal state of mind for psychedelics. So in this video, we'll take a look at some recommendations from Paul Stamets and then build on those ideas. Not without his critics, Stamets is, nevertheless, one of the more prominent figures in the psychedelic community. Here he is describing his tips for outdoor mushroom use, taken from an interview with Joe Rogan. I'll put a link to the full interview in the video description.
Looking at birds or walking in nature, like one of my books, Psilocybin Mushrooms of the World, has a great chapter in it, I think, called Good Tips for Great Trips. I understand the clinically controlled settings for clinical studies, etc. A lot of us don't need that, but I really enjoy being on an ocean bluff or a high point, imbibing in the mushrooms about half an hour before sunset, being with a loved one. Also good to have an experienced person who's not tripping, who is the watcher, a sitter. A sitter is there thinking, meditation practice in place, folks, give these people some space, who's just watching. And then the people who are imbibing understand they have a watcher. They have somebody who's anchored, who can help them. And then to have the sun go down and the stars come out and the colors and then this oceanic expansive experience is just nothing short of spiritual. When you have these really profound spiritual experiences, it sits with you. And when you remember it, you rekindle that thought. And this may be a way of overlaying PTSD. Rather than having the reference standard that's associated with PTSD, you supplant it with a positive experience. But the people who had negative experiences during tripping did not have that negative consequences did not extend more than the experience itself. So this was a profound insight. And so John Hopkins, Roland Griffiths just emailed me recently. They have other clinical studies that are ongoing. These psilocybin mushroom experiences create a positive reference point that you can capitalize on by remembering them subsequent from this experience by not even having to take the mushrooms again. That is profound. When you have a happy memory that you can anchor your personality on, it's a game changer. You know, and for people out there who have not gone on a deep psilocybin experience, this is very important for me to emphasize. And after you do, the next day, when you look at those mushrooms, you say, no way, dude, I'm not touching those for a long time. Give me 6 months, I'll come back to them. They're anti-addictive by their nature. So powerful and profound, and you've gone through the gauntlet and back. You're not ready to do it again. And so how many drugs can have such a dramatic impact that are non-addictive, that can break addictive cycles with other drugs? I think this is a gateway opportunity for solving many of the ills of our society. Thank you and your audience for having the courage to bring these subjects to the table in a coherent fashion. We don't have all the answers. We will make mistakes. I think it's really important that we're the adults in the room. We see somebody spinning off the rails. Rather than being judgmental, go up and put your arm around them, saying, hey, there's better benefits from this. I fully understand why people want to party with them, especially when they're younger and they're going to the coming of age. But as you mature, these are really important for your own sanity and for the health of your community and your family. Psilocybin mushrooms make nicer people.
So here's a summary of Paul Stamets' protocol for spiritual outdoor mushroom use, along with a bit of my own additional tips and commentary. You want to be out in nature, preferably in a location with a clear view of the night sky. Paul prefers being on a high point or ocean bluff. Make sure it's not a dangerous location where someone could easily fall and injure themselves. Take the mushrooms approximately 30 minutes before sunset. Preferably you want to be with a loved one, but friends or family, or maybe even total strangers, could be interesting too. Best to have a sitter, someone to watch over everyone else, to enhance the sense of safety and actual safety. As the sun goes down and the stars come out and combine with the color visuals, you may have a spiritual, expansive, oceanic experience. What is an oceanic experience, you may ask? It's the experience, usually brief and completely unexpected, of being at one with the entire universe and of feeling a deep meaning and purpose to every part of existence. It is often accompanied by feelings of compassion and love for all beings. The experience will hopefully have enduring benefits and be recalled fondly and enjoyed later on, even when you are not under the influence of anything. This is not a party. It is an important spiritual experience that ideally enhances one's well-being. Best not to combine with other drugs, including alcohol, and especially drugs known to blunt the effects of psilocybin. It's worth noting that the consensus opinion seems to be that cannabis does not combine well with psilocybin, despite some people who feel otherwise. I know from experience there is something extraordinary about observing a starry night sky as the psychedelic visuals start to kick in. I would still recommend that you do much of the same mental preparation you would do for any other psychedelic experience. Remember that the more care and effort you put into the experience, the more you will end up benefiting from the experience. You should ideally set an intention in your mind beforehand. This is essentially a way of preparing your mind for the experience. An intention can be something as simple as, I would like to have a positive spiritual experience involving love, peace, beauty, and euphoria. Memorize your intent and repeat it in your mind as you drift off to sleep each night leading up to your experience. You want to be dreaming about your intent and reminding your subconscious mind about it. That said, there is a saying, you don't always get the trip you want, but the trip you need. I always recommend people try to resolve any conflicts in their life before tripping. This could mean asking someone for forgiveness because you have wronged them, or it could mean forgiving someone else who wronged you. It could mean patching up damaged relationships. I would also recommend eliminating any negative influences and entertainment in your life in the weeks before your experience. For example, eliminate scary or violent TV or movies. Ideally, spend a little more time in nature and in quiet contemplation. Observe and find beauty wherever you are. Do something to help out another person, either someone you know or a total stranger. Consider volunteer work. All this may sound a bit strange and over the top if you've never tried it, but I assure you that it is all part of the process of nudging your mind towards a positive state of mind, which leads to a positive psychedelic experience. I will reiterate, the more effort you put into preparing your mind, the better your results will be. If you're angry or selfish or a narcissist, just taking a psychedelic isn't going to help. The work begins before you take the psychedelics. Then the psychedelics help bring about enduring positive change. When done right, this is change that you will be able to feel and others in your life will notice. Let's talk about some logistics of using mushrooms outdoors. You'll want to think about everything you should bring along. If you are driving to the location and taking the mushrooms at night, it's probably not a good idea to drive back the same night. So you will need to figure out in advance where and how you will be sleeping. Bring a tent or hammock, for example, mosquito and tick repellent, a first aid kit, a pillow, and comfortable blankets or sleeping bags. You may want to bring a reclining chair to sit in so you'll be comfortable for the several hours that the trip lasts. I also recommend you bring along trip music and a device that is capable of playing the music for at least 5 hours. It's fine if you don't end up listening to music. The sounds of crickets, tree frogs, water, or anything else in nature can be wonderful all by themselves, but it is a good idea to have trip music with you as a safety precaution. Researchers believe that music can enhance the safety of the experience by providing a certain level of structure and comfort to the listener, particularly at peak levels of the experience. If you don't think your phone battery will last for several hours, you can buy a fire tablet for $50 that has a huge battery that can easily play music for 12 hours or longer. Make sure you download the music for offline use and no commercial interruptions. You can use any of the trip tracks I've published for free or create your own. I'll put links to mine in the video description. Here's a funny story someone wrote to me. This person just happened to run across a total stranger in a national park that was tripping and having a difficult time, really panicking. The Good Samaritan helped relocate the person having the bad trip, got them some water, and let the person know that they were going to be fine. then had them lay down, and he gave the person one of my trip tracks to listen to. When the person having the bad trip heard my voice talking at the beginning of the trip music, he exclaimed, "Is that Gordo? I love Gordo!" And he calmed right down and turned everything around from that point forward, having a positive experience. So there you go, evidence for the value of trip music. But this story also illustrates the value in having a trip sitter who can help you if you do get anxious. I always like to put some published research into all of my videos, so I'll close with a quick look at a study just published in April of 2022 that looked at the statistics behind people who used psychedelic mushrooms and had adverse reactions that led to seeking medical treatment. I'll put a link to the full study in the video description. They used data collected from a large anonymous online global drug use survey. Over 9,000 people reported having used psychedelic mushrooms in the last year, and of those, only 19 reported having sought emergency medical treatment. That's just 0.2% of people who used mushrooms. The only characteristic they could find that was statistically linked to these adverse events was young age. Essentially, teenagers were more likely to freak out and seek medical help. If you've watched my prior videos, you know that I do not recommend anyone under the age of 25 use psychedelics. Around age 25 is when your brain is fully developed, and it's also around that age that anyone with a serious psychiatric disorder like bipolar or schizophrenia has already been diagnosed most likely. It's interesting that in his book on psychedelics, Michael Pollan quoted the famous psychiatrist Carl Jung as saying, "It is not the young, but people in middle age who need to have an experience of the numinous to help them negotiate the second half of their lives." Anyway, getting back to the study, when there was an adverse reaction, the most common symptoms were anxiety or panic and paranoia or suspiciousness. People who had these problems blamed it on poor set and setting and mixing the mushrooms with other substances. I'll also add that another common contributor to adverse reactions is taking too high of a dose. This is why I recommend always powdering your supply in a blender, which homogenizes it so that every dose has uniform potency, then putting them into capsules so you know exactly how much you are taking by the number of capsules without having to do any weighing when you actually get to your destination. You might also take a single capsule test dose several weeks before your planned experience to get a feel for the potency level and adjust your dosing based on that, as I've described in the Hopkins video. If you wanted to be extremely type A about it, you could also use chromatography for potency testing, which will be the subject of a future video. Perhaps most importantly, all but one person seeking emergency help had returned back to normal within 24 hours, and the one outlier was back to normal within a week. So as far as we know, no serious harm came to any of the over 9,000 people who participated in this global survey. The conclusion of the study states, the results confirm psilocybin mushrooms are a relatively safe drug with serious incidents rare and short-lasting. Providing harm reduction information likely plays a key role in preventing adverse effects. This is why I make my videos. I hope that anyone who watches them has the benefit of reduced adverse reactions because they learn all about set, setting, and dosage. Your risk can be greatly reduced through education. You should be aware that psychedelics stimulate the central nervous system, which can trigger the fight or flight response in some people. This can result in anxiety or panic. But if you know these feelings are normal and will pass, and you just need to try your best to breathe deep and relax and wait it out, you should take comfort in knowing that the anxiety will fade and eventually give way to a positive experience. At difficult times like this, where anxiety is high, it may be helpful to repeat a short phrase in one's mind like, "I am safe and I am loved," until this period passes. You may also find comfort in beautiful, calming music, which is again why I recommend always having appropriate music to listen to for any psychedelic experience. Sometimes sitting up and opening one's eyes or changing scenery can also help calm a person down and lower anxiety levels. It's probably worth noting that psychedelics can also raise blood pressure and heart rate, so if you, for example, have heart disease, you may not be a good candidate for psychedelics. When considering the overall safety of psychedelics, you should put things in proper perspective. The World Health Organization reports that alcohol is involved in 3 million deaths per year, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. It is linked to 1 in 20 deaths worldwide and over 13% of all deaths among people in their 20s. So compared to alcohol, mushrooms have an absurdly better safety profile. This makes it especially ridiculous for any country to have legal alcohol but illegal mushrooms. Alright, this is a wrap. I'll close with one last quote from Jung, Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Thanks for watching, and please visit my Patreon page. I'm giving away free spore prints of potentially the best genetics in the world right now. I have to keep all of my controversial content on the Patreon page only to avoid triggering the censors here at YouTube, who have a history of deleting content creators like myself.
The revolution will not be televised.
You can follow me on Patreon for free, and all content there is available to everyone. You do not have to support the channel to gain access, although your support is always appreciated. Besides Patreon, you can follow me on social media to get alerts about new content as well. I don't post often, but will announce all new content there. See the links in the video description.